Okay, let's begin. We are on Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph 12a4. If you're following in the art scroll, the Mishnah begins. V'chen mi she'haya yeno betoch habor. Someone has his wine inside of the bor. Okay, what does the bor mean? They used to have a wine press. So what happens? Very similar to we talked about the mill. By the way, think about how much we've learned about in this Masechet already. About olives and wine and springs and trees and ditches, unbelievable, and donkeys and heat and animals, all sorts of animals, unbelievable, flax fields and this. Look at what you needed to know if you needed to be a rabbi. Okay, says the Mishnah, you have wine in the bor, in the ditch. What does it mean in the ditch? That means that there's a place where you're pressing the grapes. And as the grapes are being pressed, unlike flour, the flour could just sit there. When you're talking about oil or when you're talking about wine, it has to go somewhere. So what happened is that the wine would then flow into this bor, literally means a pit. Okay? But let's imagine this to be a receptacle. But that's not where it's supposed to wind up. That's just the place which is catching all the wine coming off of the wine press. Okay? Now, what are you going to do?
Is it like some
Yes,
container?
it's a receptacle. Okay. Yeah, okay?
The concept with the turned olives? There's a certain amount of time to get the wine from the bor.
Very similar. Yes, very similar. Okay? Except that the ruination is not in the same place. Last Mishnah, we talked about how you had the olives and you turned over the olives, okay? The olives had a certain amount of time before they were pressed. Here, the liquid is already in the vat, but the liquid will spoil. So in one case, we need the olives to be turned, or we need the olives to be pressed. In one case, we need the wine to be preserved. So the wine goes into this vat. It's already squeezed. Yeah. Okay. And suddenly they come to him with the wine in the bor, in the vat, that unfortunately he's a avel, or honest, or something happened which meant that he was not able to get to the further point, which is to get into the barrels. The workers told him they were coming, they didn't come. In any of these scenarios, okay, the point is that a person is now unable to get this stuff into something which is going to keep it from ruination. Zolef v'gomer v'gaf kedarko. He's able to pour from the barrel, okay, from the bor, the vat, into the barrel, v'gaf kedarko, and he's able to seal it in his normal way. Either the avel, or the ones, or the guy whose workers didn't show. No problem, able to do it, finish it off as you normally would. Divrei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. What could you do? You pour it into, he also holds you could pour it into the barrel, at least according to the simple understanding. You could pour it into the barrel, and then you could cover the barrel in a temporary way. You could put slats of wood across the top of the barrel. Just by the way, what does a barrel look like?
Slatted wood.
Slatted wood.
If it's not sealed, wouldn't it spoil?
No, not to the same degree. Okay? So, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yossi says, do it as you normally would. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you're able to do it so it won't sour. But obviously, it's going to not be saved to the same degree. It's not going to be last as long. Remember, all that time when you don't have the seal, what's the difference between the sealed bottle and slats? Air. The oxygen, it causes fermentation. It causes ages. You could lose liquid. They call it angel share, right? So it evaporates. So lots of different things happen.
What's the difference between the bor and a non-sealed barrel?
The bor also doesn't keep it in the same way.
Temporary.
Now,
a non-sealed barrel?
Hold on. Remember what I told you. That the simple way of understanding this is that everybody holds that you can move it from the vat to the barrel. That's not everybody holds that way. What's the disagreement? The disagreement is how much is the barrel better than the vat? And if the vat can handle it, but you'll suffer some loss of quality, of quantity. Right. So we're going with the opinion now that everybody agrees that leaving it in the vat not an option. Okay. Because if we didn't all agree that leaving it in the vat is not an option, then there might be a machloket Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, even on vatting it. According to some opinions, there are. But we're going according to the opinion that everybody held that you could move it to the barrel. Only question is sealage. Okay? Are you able to seal it properly, or do we only allow you to put the wooden slats, but not to seal it with the pitch or with the clay necessary?
You're saying that we go by that. We're going by that.
We're interpreting the Mishnah.
Where's those other arguments?
Other Rishonim are learning the Mishnah differently. They're saying that Rabbi Yehuda.
Not in the Gemara, though.
No, so far, already just in the Mishnah, before we even get to the Gemara. So they're understanding that the Rabbi Yehuda is saying, no, you're only able to put slats of wood on top of the vat. That's how other opinions are learning. We're not going to go according to those opinions. We're going to go according to the opinions that understand the Mishnah, talking about only a difference of opinion in sealing of the barrel. Now, I just want to also make this clear. Sealing, we all understand, sealing is a melacha.
Hard work.
Right?
Sealing, yes, it is.
Wait, before we get to hard work.
No, sealing
is a melacha.
hard, yeah.
What? No.
Oh, melachan
Be
Shabbat.
careful. Listen to what I'm saying. It's a melacha.
Oh, okay.
It's an act of work.
Yeah.
Why? Because the taking of the seal.
Is it whack?
Is this recording? I'm not sure if this is recording properly. It might be this one. No, but it doesn't look like it is.
It's green.
But it says it's recording. I think it could be
You're okay.
that's recording it, but it wasn't recording before. So I'm not sure what this is. What's going on over here? Let me just turn this. Oh, here we go. Okay. Hello. Yeah. All right. I think we're recording. I think we're okay. Let's continue. So, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because we could look at this and be like, 1 second, what's going on over here? Why am I not allowed to pour something from one thing to the other thing? I can't pour liquid from a bottle of wine into a cup? What's the isur over here? What's the problem? The answer is, remember, we're not talking about a cup. We're talking about a massive vat. So to pour that is a tremendous amount of effort. So understand, the shifting of the vat to the barrel is excessive labor. Okay? The sealing of the barrel is a milacha. Now, the second part has two reasons why it's forbidden. The first part has one reason why it's forbidden. But I just want to make it clear what the problem is over here in the first place when we talk about Chol HaMoed. Okay? When we're talking about a guy who's a Avel, so the Avelut is just about work. You can't be at work. It's not about melacha. When we talk about Chol HaMoed, what is the problem? Either the melacha, because as we said, you need to have something which is allowed, or you need to have something which excessive labor is allowed. Now, in either scenario, whether I'm trying to get you out of the melacha, or on Chol HaMoed, and we said that Chachamim have to allow you to do so for davar aved, for a big loss, or I'm trying to get you to be allowed to do work as an avel, which is midrabanan, but the rabbis allowed you to not have the problem of avelut when you have a big loss. In either scenario, there needs to be a big loss. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start the Gemara. Gemara says, hold on, Vitzricha, we need this Mishnah. You just gave me a Mishnah that seems to be telling you the exact same law. You have your olives, you turn them over, you didn't squeeze them. If you're going to lose, Rabbi Yossi said, you could do whatever you need to do. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, you could do the minimum that you could do in order to stop the loss. But anything more than that, you can't do. So now, what is this Mishnah adding? Now you're going to tell me the same Mishnah on cranberries, and then next Mishnah will tell you on peaches, next Mishnah will tell you on lemonade? What'd you add? You just switched the fruit? Gemara says as follows, if you told me the first one, which is about olive oil, I would have told you, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says that you're allowed to do everything you need to do. When did Rabbi Yossi allow you to do everything? Mishum de mishcha nafish pseda. Because olive oil is more expensive than wine, at least in their times. Okay? Remember, their wine was like a soft drink.
Right.
They were drinking wine with every meal. Right. The children were drinking wine. Okay? So it was a much more commonplace item. They were drinking young wine. They didn't have what's the French wine?
Bordeaux.
That one.
Which one?
The one that we enjoyed together. Pepe.
Pape Clement.
Pape Clement. All right? You have a beautiful bottle of wine. You're thinking to yourself, that costs much more than olive oil. Right? We're talking about a regular type of wine, okay? That they were drinking all the time, Manischewitz, or worse, okay? But says the Gemara, so when did we say that Rabbi Yossi allowed you to do it? It's by olive oil, more expensive. Aval Chamra, when it comes to wine, which is cheaper, I might have thought, it's not as big of a loss. Then I would have thought, Ema Modile Rabbi Yehuda, he would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that you're only able to do the minimal amount of work. So therefore, we had to tell you this chidush about the lesser one. So ask the Gemara backwards. So you know what? I have a great idea. Only give me the second Mishnah. Because then for sure, the Gemara says, then the flip side, you wouldn't know. If you only told me the lesser one, I would have told you by Ikama Rabbi Yehuda. When did Rabbi Yehuda say that you're not allowed to do this work? Only by a lesser object of value, like wine. But if it came to olive oil, I would have assumed that Rabbi Yehuda would have agreed with Rabbi Yossi that you're allowed to do even maximal work because it's a greater value. He would agree to Rabbi Yossi. Therefore, I need to tell you both cases. The more expensive one to tell you that Rabbi Yehuda still disagrees. The less expensive one to tell you that Rabbi Yossi still disagrees. Okay? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Abba. Yitzchak bar Abba says, Mantana, Shinu b'moed b'davar aved. Who holds that you have to do a shinui, a different way of doing the melacha on the chol moed b'davar aved when it comes to an object of great loss? The Gemara says, they look at Rabbi Yossi. It's the opinion that disagrees against Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is not that opinion. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yosef. Yosef says, Halacha ki Rabbi Yossi. Halacha actually follows Rabbi Yossi. What does Rabbi Yossi tell us? Rabbi Yossi tells us that you don't have to do a shinui. You're able to transfer it into the barrels. You're able to put the seal on, etc., etc. Now, let's hit pause for 1 second. I want to try and understand the opinions of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda from a perspective that's outside of the lines of the Gemara. Let's just try and understand and recap what their opinions are. Rabbi Yossi said, you're able to do everything. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you do the minimal. Effectively, what we're really talking about over here is that when it comes to something which is a matter of loss, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda both agree that the loss allows me to do something that I otherwise would not have been able to do. The question is, do we say that once I've recovered the majority of the loss, but there's still more loss? So in other words, I could take care of the loss 80% by doing less.
Do you suffer any loss? That's the question.
Am I obligated to minimize loss? So remember, this is very interesting because in order for something to be pseda, for me to allow you to do anything, there's a level of loss that we need to achieve, right? So if it's a tiny level of loss, what would we say? You can't do it. So you need a large enough level of loss. At that point where you have a large enough level of loss, Rabbi Yossi says, go for it. You're mutar. Says Rabbi Yehuda, no. Not blanket mutar, blank check mutar. Because if I could bring the loss back down to that 20%, which you never would have allowed me to do in the first place, how could you allow me to do more? If you agree with me that at 20% loss, you wouldn't have allowed me to do any melacha, so let me just bring it back down 80% to 20% loss. At this point, you're not allowed to do it. And you would have agreed with me yesterday. You understand how you could see this argument from both sides? Rabbi Yossi says, once I allowed you to do, I opened the floodgates. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, once I allow you to do as much as makes sense. But to do more, we never allowed you. Now, by the way, in other areas of Shas, okay, we would talk about this as hutra or dechuya. What do those two words mean? Hutra means that once we allowed you to do something, the isur became mutar. Dechuya means, no, it didn't become mutar. It became pushed off. The isur is still there. It just got pushed off. Now you came back to your 20% loss profile. I never said that you could do this for 20% loss. You see? So we're kind of seeing how Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi are occupying maybe different perspectives of allowance when it comes to Chol Moed. I just wanted to categorize, to codify a little bit, maybe the way they're approaching this.
If your loss at the outset would be equivalent to 20%, you don't touch it.
I'm giving you a sketch number.
Just
My point is,
example.
if it's too
A
small,
minor loss.
Yeah.
If it starts minor, you don't touch it.
you don't touch it.
But if it starts major,
You're allowed.
then you touch it until it's minor.
According to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yossi, once I allowed you to touch it, I allowed you to do
All the
everything.
way.
Yeah, there was no minimum.
There's no minimum for Rabbi Yossi.
No restriction.
And
Okay?
there wasn't a-
Rabbi Yossi says, once it's mutar, mutar.
Do it, yeah.
Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it was never mutar.
not to be.
It was pushed off. It was pushed off until it stopped making sense to push it off. Okay? So let's just imagine, that's a nice way of imagining the ideas of Rabbi Yehuda versus Rabbi Yossi. Gemara says, Ba mine merav Nachman bar Yitzchak. They asked a question from Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Ma'u lemesha chavita d'shichra b'chul moed. Am I allowed to seal the barrel of beer on Chol HaMoed? Amalahu, he said, Sinai Amar, halachat Rabbi Yossi. Sinai was a nickname for Rabbi Yossi. Sinai means Har Sinai. At Har Sinai, the Jewish people had tremendous clarity. Rabbi Yosef was someone who was such a great Torah scholar that his understanding of the teachings of the Chachamim was so clear, it was as if they were standing at Mount Sinai. So what they call him?
Sinai.
They called him Sinai.
Love that. Love that. name.
Right? By the way, don't you all want to be called Sinai right now? Okay. Anyway, so Sinai says halakha Rabbi Yossi. The halakha follows Rabbi Yossi. So therefore, what are you allowed to do? You're allowed to seal the barrel of beer. The Gemara says, what do you mean, Sinai? Emor da'amar Rabbi Yossi b'chamra. Rabbi Yossi said it
Barrel of wine.
on chamra, on wine. B'shichra miyamar, who said that he says it with regards to beer as well. The Gemara answers, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak answered them back on behalf of on behalf of Sinai, on behalf of Rabbi Yosef. Chamra taimamai. Why did Rabbi Yossi initially allow it when it came to wine? Mishum de nafish pseda, because there's a big loss. Shichra nami it bepseda. When it comes to beer, there's also a tremendous loss. The Amar Abaya Amar li'em. Abaya said, my mom told me, but obviously it wasn't his mother. Abaya was an orphan. So he was raised by someone, and he called the person who raised him his mother. We learn that when a person raises someone else's child, they're considered to be, in Shamayim, like their parents. Mother told me, Ani, Amra li'em, bar shit savi v'saya, mi bar tmanev de lo saya. If you have a barrel of beer that's 6 sa'ah, but it's sealed properly, that's worth the same, or it's worth more, than bar tmane, a 8-gallon barrel, or 8 sa'ah barrel that's not sealed properly. Okay? Why? Because either,
Quality makes up for the quantity.
either, now this is interesting, either it means that there's going to be dissipation, loss of alcohol content, all sorts of different things, or loss of quality. But whatever the case is, what we do know is that a far lower amount, right? What are you talking about? You're talking about a 25% decrease in quantity. So 6, you're losing the value, 25% of the value, when you're not sealing the beer bottle. Says Abaye, you see over here that there's a big loss. And if there's a big loss, then just like Rabbi Yossi allowed for wine, he would allow also for beer.
25% the number then?
No,
Because it's 6 to 8?
no.
Ah.
All you're seeing is that he called this a big loss. Maybe at a lower level, we also would have done it. Like, what if his mom felt that a 6 was worth a 7?
Yeah.
So maybe that would be the same thing. He's just quoting his mother. So we don't know to what point he would have required. But minimally, we should learn. You understand what I just said?
Minimum.
Minimally, we should be able to learn from Abaye that at least Abaye felt that 25% loss on an item was enough.
And it permits a good seal also.
Sorry?
It permits a good seal.
In other words, not just for excess,
Not just covering it.
and not just excess work,
Right.
but also to do a melacha.
Because you're allowed to
Because
stop the law.
that is a melacha to seal.
Why
Okay?
is it a melacha to seal, but not to pour the wine from the vat into the...
Excellent. So pouring something from one vessel to another is not one of the melachot. When you do the seal, in order to be able to make it a proper airtight seal, you need to really get it in all the cracks. So in order to do that, you basically, again, if you've ever seen a seal, you'll see that they basically have to go all the way around the circle with the wax, all the way around the circle with pitch, or all the way around the circle with whatever they're using in order to be able to do it. Now, in order to do that, you're smoothing it. One of the melachot in the Mishkan was memachek,
Oh, with the item that we spoke about before.
like a trowel. That's the same
I
item.
said that.
You just wouldn't necessarily use a trowel over here because you're not trying to do tiles, but you would do the same item that you would do with a trowel, and that's memachek. Okay? Yeah.
Is the pouring of from the vat to there, like we learned in the beginning, when we redirect the water to irrigate the land?
No.
Different.
Why? Minimal physical exertion there. Here,
Is the
maximal
water-
physical exertion.
Even if
You
it's
literally
not
have to
doing
lift the whole item.
Also
Right.
here they don't differentiate the skill level versus the labor level, right? Remember we did that a little.
I
remember
have
we
so
did
many.
that a little
I have
bit?
so many questions on this.
Remember we
So
talked
why is
about
it-
that?
Has
Like,
anyone
like,
has
real
anyone
small-
here ever
almost
understood the
like a seal
physics
thing.
behind siphoning gas?
Yeah.
Yes.
Vacuum.
What do you need to do?
You need to
take-
fill it all up and then
You
pull
take,
out the
you
air.
pull out the air.
And then
and then you-
Vacuum.
and
It's a
then
vacuum.
the-
of
You
it.
have to fill the hose
What-
with the
It sucks it
item.
out.
What
It's
if?
very little work.
What if I just used, instead of excessive effort, I just used physics?
Right. And redirect it.
So let's say, remember, we just said that there's no opinion that says that you can't transfer in our version of the Mishnah. But I told you that there's some Rishonim that hold that the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda was that you can't transfer from the vat because of excess. Yeah, that's only excessive effort.
The whole thing.
So what if I come up with a tircha not yitera in order to be able to transfer it? Would I be allowed to do that or not?
Maybe.
So I have only one logic that knocks out my siphoning gas technique.
Drilling a hole into.
No,
You gotta breathe heavily.
no. You have a guy who sees the wine in the next barrel, Marit Ayin, he doesn't know that you know how to siphon the gas. As far as he's concerned, what'd you do? Excessive effort. Once excessive effort, you're back in Marit Ayin land.
It becomes a common thing. That's how you transfer wine.
If yes, yes, but clearly not. The Mishnah is telling you excessive effort. Right? It might have been Marit Ayin, like that. Okay, let's carry on. Says the Gemara.
Remember we said also like the sealing process, right? Is
Yeah.
skilled. It's not something just any. Remember we differentiated skilled from
Yes.
expert from layman. Remember we
Yeah,
said
the-
that before?
yes.
And a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Sealing, really very specialized work to do.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
You gotta.
I don't know.
seal it airtight.
I don't know enough about this item.
Can
Maybe
you
it is.
seal it in a non-skilled way?
No.
You know how
can't.
sometimes if you don't do it. the
No, it wouldn't be
perfect
done
way-
right. It has to be 100% sealed.
But the truth is, I don't know. Like, is that something that requires skill or not? I don't know. Like, I know that laying tiles looks very easy. It's not. Like, you have the tile that's not the right way, it's up on the thing, you didn't do the item. And you always see the guy who did it, like, on the Ipchai, and then you see, like, they're not exactly the right way. You put two of the same color next to each
Yeah,
other.
they
Yeah.
settle.
And now they're in. Okay. Amar Rav Chama Bar Guria. Rav Chama Bar Guria said in the name of Rav, another name for our list,
Guria?
Guria. Beautiful name. Okay? Hilchot Moed Bilchot Kilchot Kutim Bahalacha. The laws that govern Chol HaMoed are similar to the laws of a kuti, which is if you remember, we talked about these people that lived amongst the Jewish people that did not keep all of the laws, but they kept some things that were amongst the Jewish people. They kept some things that we knew that we could trust them. Okay, so they were people that had quasi-Jewish practices, but some things that we knew that they did keep. Okay, we knew that they kept them very stringently. That's always what Rashi tells you when it comes to the kutim. Okay.
We only have the kuti, the guy who puts the
Houthis or
daughter.
Houthis?
He puts the smear on the daughter. We didn't have kuti.
Yes, we did. The kuti was in the neighborhood of the rabbi who put the thing on his daughter. Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
That was the only time we had the kuti.
yeah, but we didn't have kuti with regards to this.
Right.
We had kutim in other places when we talked about the tzedukim and the baitusim.
Got it.
Okay, so the Gemara says that the laws of Chol HaMoed are like the laws of kuti with regards to halacha. Okay, the Gemara says, "Lema hilcheta." What does that mean? What are you trying to communicate? Amarav Daniel Bar Katina Amarav Lomar Shehen Akurot. When we're talking about the laws of Chol HaMoed, they are like akurot. Ve'en lemedot zu mizu. You can't learn them one from the other. What is akurot? They're people that are women that are unable to have children. Okay, so the laws of moed are like hilchot kutim ba'alacha. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, you see right by the wide line, by the first wide line, hilchot kutim. De amrinan, we say, hecha de achzik achzik, hecha de lo achzik lo achzik. We said earlier that kutim, we knew that some mitzvot they did and some mitzvot they didn't do. And some things they were strict on and some things they weren't strict on. If you knew something that they were strict on, then you're able to rely. A kuti tells you, oh, this is kosher. If you know that that's an item that they're strict with, they're more strict than we are, so you can rely on them. Okay?
Tell me really.
But no rhyme or reason.
People who it's like a band of people, a group of people.
Okay, not Jewish?
And they were not Jewish, but they did some sort of conversion. So they had some idol worshiping practices and some things that were like very similar to Jewish people. Okay? Now, how do you know? Guy comes and he tells you he's a kuti, and he's telling you this is kosher, this is not kosher, this is mutar, this is asur, right? This woman is this woman is that, this cow is this. Any practice in the Torah that they kept, if they told you something, you could rely on them 100%. Because they were stricter on that item even than we were. Okay? However, when it came to things that they were not, then you have no ne'emanut, they have no trustworthiness. Okay. So the Gemara says, what are you supposed to do? How do you know what yes, what not? Hecha di ichzik. When we know that they are chazakah, that this is something, it's a known item, it's established that they're keeping that item. If we established it, we established it. If not, not. So what are we trying to say? What we're trying to say is the same way a law of chol moed is similar to the laws of kutim. On something that it's established, it's established. Anything not established, you can't learn from one thing to the next.
Remember we said that before.
Yeah. Okay.
We said that's the halakha.
That's the halakha over here, exactly. And you can't learn.
This is different than that.
Can't learn to something else.
They're making a halakha.
So therefore, it says it over here also, just like the akurot. Ki isha akara she'en la'adam mimena peri ela gufa. When a person marries in akara, what does he have? He can't have children from her. He only has the relationship that he has with her is what he has with her. Yeah. Just like an akara has no children that we learn out of it. Also this, we're not just picking a random, we're taking a dig at children, women that don't have children. Like, here's a great way to put salt in the wound. Let's talk about women who can't. It's like a barren woman. What do we say? Just important to understand. In the laws of Shabbat, you got it? You got where I'm going?
There's nothing more. It's like the wife and the husband only. There's no more.
Better than that. More, yes, but more than that. In the laws of Shabbat, there's 39? No. 39 avot melachot.
Got it.
Oh, then the extensions.
What are all the extensions called? What are all the extensions called?
Sins.
No. Avot is the fathers. All the halachot that we learn out of those halachot are called toldot.
Generations.
So therefore, when you can't learn something from something, it doesn't have a tolda.
Right.
What's a woman that doesn't have a tolda? Hakara. So it's not that we randomly pick this. This is the language we always use. The highest level of tumah, what's it called? Avot tumah. What's the lower level of tumah? Toldot tumah. Okay? What's a av of tumah that can give two kinds of tumah?
Leprosy.
Avi avot tumah. Grandpa. You see? So we literally use the language. Exactly. Exactly.
So that's the family.
Lomar she'en akurot. It sounds like a strange language, but if you're familiar with the language, if you have an item that, now by the way, we also use this concept in numerals. It's called orphan. It's used in spreadsheets, right? An orphan that doesn't have anything, you can't take anything out of it, okay? So, lomar she'en akurot. Ve'en limedot zu mizu. You can't learn one from the other. Shmuel says, zoftin kusta, ve'en zoftin chavita. You're able to take zefet, means like pitch. We came across this. We also had it Monday night.
Yeah.
Mebait u'michutz, inside outside, okay? With Noach and the Teva, and Moshe being the gold. Beautiful. Okay? Zoftin kusta. You're able to pitch or coat the inside of a jug. Ve'en zoftin chavita. But you're not allowed to put the pitch on the inside of a barrel. Rav Dimi minarda. Now, why is that? Why would you not be able to do that? Look at Rashi for 1 second. Ve'en lemedin zu mizu. First wide line. You don't learn one from the other. De'ema kishem shezu muteret kach zu muter. I should say, same way this is allowed, that's allowed. Kemo bekutim, just like by the kutim. V'lo amrinan ki echid machzik b'hai machzik b'hai. Oh, just like that we could trust them for this, we could trust them for this. Ela lo yalfi hani mehani. You don't learn one from the other. So just like, and where do we find this idea that it's a truism in actual in halakha, where we say you can't do this even though you could do this? Mar said, Zoftin chavita, you're able to do one small thing, but not the other. Why? Chayish l'pseda. Bechavita, ika pseda yetera. And when it comes to a barrel, you have more pseda. Ilo zaftila, mishum dinafish yena, it has a lot more wine. Ubikusta leka pseda yetera. Kule katan. So still, mar da amar zoftin lekuza chayish ticha yetera, vekuza leka ticha yetera, bechavita ika yetera. So the Gemara is basically saying, 1 second. When it comes, Shmuel said, okay, zoftin kusta ve'en zoftin chavita. You're able to do the inside of a jug, but not of a barrel. Rav Dimi Minarda says, no, zoftin chavita ve'en zoftin kusta. You're able to pitch the inside of a barrel, but not the inside of a pitcher. Mar chayish lepseda, mar chayish letircha. One opinion says, what do you mean? A barrel is so much work, excessive work. So you could only do a jug, not a barrel. Too much work. The other guy says, no, you can only do a barrel, not a jug. You know why?
More loss?
Yeah, not enough loss. So here you see, the Gemara gives you a perfect example where your logic, where obviously if I could do this, I could do that. No. You see exactly not. Separate rules. One rabbi will tell you only this, because he's giving a preference to this. So you see clearly that the logic in one direction might preclude the logic heading in another direction. What do we call this? What do we call this?
Illogical.
What do we call this? Not illogical, supra-logical. Where do you have supra-legal? Yes. You get that? Yeah. Supra means, it's not that it's illogical, it's that it's a law that transcends. Why? Because the logic heads off in two opposite directions. So even you might think bigger is more mutar, but there's also a reason why bigger should be more asur. Less should be more mutar, because less work. But less, there's also a reason why it should be less allowed. So, says the Gemara. So therefore, don't make up your own laws when it comes to Chol Moed, because it's in every scenario, you only know what you know. Amar Abaye says, Naktinan hilchot Moed kilchot Shabbat. We always learn this general rule that the laws of Moed are same as the laws of Shabbat.
So the jug example was to show that the differences.
No, you can't take
Small
one
jug,
opinions.
no, to show that because it's allowed in the barrel by one guy is not the reason, because it's a lot of work, but it's allowed. The jug's small, you could do the jug. You can't do the barrel for his reason. So they're different halachot.
What the Gemara is trying to say is not that there's different opinions, not there's different shittot, different rabbis.
No, you can't.
But
you can't come from one
don't
conclusion,
think
from one thing
that you can make a kal vachomer
do the jug, you could do
because there's an equal and opposite kal vachomer in the other direction.
So they use those two.
So we use this machloket
to make that.
exactly because one guy is looking at the other guy like he's Mejnun. Because I obviously have a kal vachomer. The other guy says I have a kal vachomer in the exact opposite direction.
The purpose of the jug was to show
that you can't extrapolate when it comes to the moed. Says the Gemara. So Abaye says we learned the general rule. The general rule is that the laws of the moed are similar to the laws of Shabbat. Yesh mehen patur aval asur. So it turns out that there are times when a person will be patur, but it will still be asur. Patur means that you don't get a punishment, but it's forbidden. Yesh mehen mutar lecha techila. And there are some cases that are completely allowed. All right, you get that?
Forbidden, but you don't get punished.
So you have
being allowed.
You have allowed, and then you have forbidden, and then you have punished. Clear? Yeah. So you have some cases will be allowed. Then obviously there's no punishment. Then you have forbidden, but not punishable. Then you have punishable. Punishable is obviously also forbidden. So it's like a hierarchy of what's it called? Of allowed to.
Do's and don'ts.
Yes, do's and don'ts. No, literally asur. There's some things which are asur, but you don't get punished for them. Okay? Says the Gemara. Where do we find this opinion of Rabbi Yossi playing out in the real world? Rav Huna, hatztu le hatzada b'moada. One time, Rabbi Huna, they went out and they cut down all of his grain on the holiday on Chol HaMoed. Etbe, Rabbi Bar Avhuna came to his father, okay, and he asked him, Tochanin kemach b'moed letzorach moed. You're allowed to grind flour, like we said, on the moed, Chol HaMoed, for whatever you need on Chol HaMoed. Yes, ushelo letzorach moed asur, but whatever is not for the sake of the moed, you're not allowed to do so. Davar she'avud b'moed mutar la'asoto b'moed. Something which is going to be a loss on the moed, you're allowed to do it on the moed. Davar she'eno avud b'moed. Something which is not going to get lost. You're not going to have a loss from it if you don't do it on the Chol HaMoed. Asur, you're not allowed to do so. But medvar amurim, when did we say this? B'tilushim min akarka. When something is already detached from the earth. Aval mechubar b'karka. But if something is still attached to the earth, i.e., like grain that has not yet been harvested, afilu kulo avid asur. Even if the whole thing is going to get ruined, still you're not allowed. It's forbidden to be able to cut that on Chol HaMoed. V'i en lo mayachol. But if he has no food to eat whatsoever, kotzer umeamer v'dash v'zoreh uborer v'tochen. You're allowed to cut and to gather and to thresh it and to winnow it, throw it to the wind, uborer, and separate it, v'tochen, and grind it. Bilvad shlo yadush beparot. The only thing is that you're not allowed to use the oxes to be able to do the threshing.
But doesn't that go against what we learned previously?
What do you mean?
He's saying the guy
A
starved.
complete loss.
No, but then he said the guy starved.
No, but he said even if you...
No. In a case where the thing is attached to the ground.
Yeah.
So complete loss, you're not allowed to do so. Again, when he's qualifying that law. The law of davar aved is in a case where you have wine.
I see.
But to say, I now need to do all this work
Have
from...
the laws, but it's attached to the ground.
You can't. Except
Specific thing.
If you want to eat
if you need to eat on the moed.
Was it a nice way of asking his father why'd you like
another
to
one
cut
of those
everything
things.
if we have food for the holiday?
No, it's not a nice way. He's bringing it from a braita.
This is like a lot of.
They
Okay?
have food for the holiday. So he's saying why'd you
Super
cut it?
logical.
Yes.
I'm saying a nice way.
Yeah, he's saying it. So,
Superlogical ideas in this.
especially in moed. Yes. You know why? Because we said earlier, the whole of the moed was laws that were given. We said that the Torah said it's asur, but also says it's mutar. What does the Torah mean? The answer is that it's asur from the Torah, but we gave the rabbis leeway to be able to decide which ones were not. So we're living in a supralogical scenario. So Rabbi Bar Avhuna is asking his father. He says, you see, the Braita says that you're only able to have what you need for the holiday cut from the ground. Nothing else, even if it's davar aved. Amalei, he said, yechidahi. That Braita is only the opinion of one Tana. I don't hold like the Tana of that Braita, and I hold that the law of davar aved applies even to something that's attached to the ground. So all that we've been learning is not as opposed to what's still attached, but it includes what's attached. Your Braita is correct, but it's the opinion of one Tana that I don't hold of. Titania, because I learned in a Braita that said differently. Kilala, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Mishur Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said in the name of Rabbi Yossi, Davar atulush min hakaka, something which is detached. Afilu miktato avud, even if only part of it is going to be lost, mutar. Ve'amechubar bakarka, and something which is attached to the ground, afilu kulo avud, even if it's going to be completely lost, asur. Right? Now, it turns out that who's this opinion that says this law? Only the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. So that's the opinion of one Shita. Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi, if the opinion of the Braita is only according to Rabbi Yossi, we have to end here. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask now on this opinion of the Shita Yechida of Rabbi Yossi. Okay? Baruch Hanei Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.
Finished on 12b.